Okay, so in this one here, we're going to take a look at the compound interest formula. Remembering that compound interest is when we get interest paid on our interest as well as our principal, and it keeps adding up and makes us more money than simple interest does. And it is how we make money by investing and how banks make money by loaning money. So compound interest pays interest on interest. And we want to take a look at an example of this. Based on our simple interest, we're going to build this into a compound interest formula. So if we look at our simple interest idea, in this case here, we got a value of 5,000 invested 6% compound annually for 4 years. We are going to look at this idea that, our interest, our amount that we make is the principal plus the interest. But what's interest? What's the formula we have for interest from our previous section? Well, interest is PRT, principal times the rate times the time. Reaching back to when we were doing some factoring, these have a common factor of P. P equals 1 plus RT. We have principal plus the interest. So let's take this into consideration now when we do our calculation. So we got our year, 1, 2, 3, and 4. We have our original value or initial values. Misspelling that terribly. Initial value. And then we have our amount. So I'm just slightly tweaking the table we were using before. So initial value is $5,000. And then the amount is over here in this formula. So 5,000 times 1 plus 0.06, and our time is 1 year, so I'm not even going to bother putting that in. So just 1 plus 0.06, or 5,000 times 1.06. Now, without calculating that, I'm just going to bump that over here. 5,000 times 1.06 is our initial value. So if we do this again, we have 5,000, 1.06. That is that value there, times this part here, which is that bracket, 1.06 is what that works out to. And so I'm just simplifying this. And then the next one, third year, we're just going to multiply it by 1.06 yet again. Bracket 1.06. So there's our initial value times our interest rate. How could we simplify that? 1.06 times 1.06 times 1.06. It's 1.06 to the power of 3, to the power of 2, to the power of 1. So 5,000 times 1.06, that's just to the power of 3. This next year, 5,000 times 1.06 would be to the power of 4. That is how we can figure out our compound interest. The 1 plus the interest rate to the power of the number of years. And that is the formula in general. A little more specific though, because the compound interest doesn't always work by years. Sometimes it works by different periods. The compound interest formula is the amount equal to the principal times 1 plus the interest rate per period. We were working with years in the previous question, to the power of the number of compounding periods. Again, we were working with years, so it was 4. So A equals P times 1 plus I to the N. I and N are a little bit different. Why? Well, I is our interest rate. per period. So we divide the rate, remember interest rates are given per year, divided by the number of times per year, periods per year. And N is the number of years times the number of times per year something's happening. How many times do things happen in a year? Well, some key words. Annually, once a year. Biannually, twice a year. Monthly, 12 times a year. Bi-monthly, twice a month or 24 times a year. Weekly, 52 times a year. Bi-weekly happens every 2 weeks. And this gets confusing because we use these terms differently. Monthly, bi-monthly, we generally mean that we're doing it every second month. Bi-weekly, we mean every second week. And so things get confusing a little bit. So that's why I'm defining especially these ones. So bi-weekly, every 2 weeks. Or sorry, bi-monthly, every twice a month. Bi-weekly, every 2 weeks. And then daily, 365. So make sure you refer to especially these two right here. These two are the confusing two. And there are different places that use them slightly differently. This is how we are going to refer to them. In our example, we'll take a look at actually using this formula. So the principal, the interest rate, and then the number of periods are our three values that we need. Ralph borrows $10,000 for 3 years at 3% compounded monthly. How much does he pay back? So he's got a principal of $10,000. The interest rate is 3%, so 0.03, compounded monthly. So that means we need to divide this by 12 because it's happening every month. And then how much, or how many times does it happen? 3 years times 12. 3 years times 12 times a year because it's happening monthly. If we calculate these out, I'm going to get 36 and 0.03 divided by 12 is 0.025. These three values are what I'm going to use in the formula. So you're going to do this all the time. The only time you don't have to is if it's annual because it's 1, but otherwise every time you're going to have to multiply and divide by one of these numbers. Our amount equals the principal, 10 grand, times 1 plus 0.025 times 30, or to the power of 36. That's our calculation. You can type this directly in your calculator, or a lot of times we just like to do this one addition first. Added those up. That should be 2 zeros, by the way. 0025. 0025. My mistake on that one. So we got 10,000 times 1.0025 to the power of 36 gets us $10,940.51. That's it. The formula is pretty straightforward. The important part that most people have trouble with is the I and the N. Again, I and N we're going to be multiplied and divided all the time. Divide I by the number of periods per year. Multiply N by the number of times per year. Let's take a look at another example. Here we got Joey investing $1,000 for 20 years at 5.4% compounded weekly. How much interest does she make? So Joey's investing $1,000. And her interest rate is 0.054 divided by 52 because it's weekly. It's 52 times a year. And then her number of periods is 20 years times the 52. So we're going to hit some big and small numbers here. 0.054 divided by 52. 0.00103846. I'm putting a whole bunch of decimals there. Why? Because it's going to make a big difference. 20 times 52, 1,040. Why is it going to make a big difference with all these decimals? Look how many times it's happening. This is happening over and over, 1,040 times. It's happening lots, so one little decimal could make a big difference. Let's fill in the formula. Final amount is 1,000 times 1 plus 0.00103846 to the power of 1,040. Plug that in my calculation device. And we get 2943.03. So after 20 years, that $1,000 is now worth $2,943. The question was, how much interest does she make? Her interest is the amount minus the original investment. It's going to be $1,943.03. There you have compound interest. Again, principal is just the value. That's the easy one. The interest rate needs to be changed to a decimal divided by the number of periods per year. The number of periods is, again, the number of years times the number of periods per year. And then you just plug it in your formula and calculate.